Welcome everybody. Bienvenue tout le monde. Thanks for coming to today's workshop. Hope you're enjoying the Ecom conference so far. This online thing is proving quite interesting and wonderful in my experience. So yes, I believe you can see on the screen right now, we're in a workshop with Emily Chan, and the title is Playground Medicine, Integrative Science in the Outdoor Classroom. So if this is not the one that you're looking for, you can bow out and we won't judge you for that. So without much further ado, I'll just pass that on to Emily to introduce herself and get going.
Emily, I just want to let you know that we can see the part where it says that you're screen sharing and stop share. I don't know, so it's kind of blocking your PowerPoint. Maybe once you actually click on your PowerPoint, that will go away.
Okay. Sorry, everybody.
In the meantime, it's fun to see familiar faces there. Hi, Bonnie.
My apologies. I think I need to remove that other camera and try to join in some other way. Or yeah, my plan is not working. So this camera, I'm just going to remove somehow my. Okay, so I may just use a backup plan here. Okay, so thank you everybody for your patience. So my name is Emily Chan, and I'm going to do a land acknowledgement that we practice at the school where I teach, Alpha Alternative Junior Public School in downtown Toronto. And I'd like to invite you to think of your own ancestry and what you love about the land as I say the land acknowledgement. So I have Chinese ancestry. I am born and raised in Toronto, Tuggeronto, and I love to grow food on the land. I'd like to acknowledge that for thousands of years before Ecom was here, the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe lived here and are still living here. Thanks to all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, because without them, we wouldn't be here. And this is a land acknowledgement that we came up with the kids at our school. And we've updated it over the years, but it's really wonderful to ask everyone to think about your own acknowledgement as well, your own ancestry, as well as what you love to do on the land. Remy, I'm just going to ask you if the video is okay.
So I am seeing your presentation, but again, as Haley mentioned, the screen sharing thing is showing up. Do you see that on your screen? I'm not sure how to get rid of that though.
Okay. Is it oh, I see. Okay, so let's see if I can remove.
If you just click on just click right on the PowerPoint itself. Like down. Yeah, just click there. No, it doesn't seem to work, does it?
Okay, so you know what? I think it's okay.
Yeah, it's not blocking too much.
If you click on that toolbar, you can slide the whole thing to the bottom of your screen versus the top of your screen.
Is that better for everyone?
Ah, okay.
Okay.
There you go, friend.
Thank you so much. So this is just a brief outline of what what we'll go through today. We are in my kitchen, as you can see. My plan was to do this as a hands-on workshop in our school playground. So I'll do my best to convey the spirit of an interactive experience today. I'd like to start us off by doing a sensory warm-up. So everybody, if you can just rub your hands together and feel the warmth that generates. And place your hands somewhere on your skin, your arms, your neck, your eyes. and feel the warmth on your body. And imagine the warmth of the sun on the baby leaves of plants growing outside right now. And feel the warmth through your body down to your toes and your feet resting on the earth. So I'm just doing with you what I would do with the kids at school. You know, kids love to play. So as educators, what better way to practice land-based learning, even in downtown Toronto, than to get out in the playground and where kids can feel invigorated and their hearts beating and racing. And the sensory part of experiential learning is just so vital. So just trying to bring a little bit of that here today. Something I've done with kids for the last several years is to make a plantain salve, plantain or plantain. Those pronunciations are interchangeable. And we pick plantain in the school playground. Each year, kids give our plantain salve a different name. Sometimes it's magical healing balm, boo-boo cream, and sometimes they're put into little kits, and I'll show you pictures of the kits that we sell at our school fundraiser. And you know, the plantain salve ends up going out into the world to families to use in their first aid kits. And in today's workshop, I'm going to show you the process in my kitchen. I had planned to have another camera set up, and I'm just going to problem solve that. And while I make the salve, we'll talk about different cultural and social and environmental teachings that plantain provides by centering Indigenous knowledge. So I've learned from Indigenous knowledge keepers, Ronica Johnny and Carolyn Crowley and Elder Duke Redbird, among others who I'll mention today, other knowledge keepers' writings who I'll acknowledge today. So a little bit about me. I grew up learning about Chinese medicines and healing qualities of foods from the plants that we grew in our yard, from my popo, my grandma. And so my curiosity and passion about the gifts of plants comes from her. And I think about her when I am doing my work as a school teacher with the kids at school. So I'm going to take a slide here. So plantain is commonly known as a weed. And so I just wanted to invite people to pop in the chat really briefly. What's one plant that you love that's known as a weed? How is it special? And if you'd like to share a memory or something you've learned about the plant and how it's changed your thinking about it from being a noxious or weed type plant to a helpful or medicine or beautiful plant, I welcome you to drop it in the chat. Amazing. I see them coming in. Thank you so much. Yeah, I've learned from doing a few workshops with kids in all my classes that trying to keep things a little bit low tech here and use the chat is a way to keep some seamlessness. So I thank you all for adding to the chat. Yes, dandelions for sure. They're so playful. And when we think about teaching with kids and having experiences and bringing experiential learning, it's all about play, you know, which is why I think drawing from what's in the playground is so valuable. Okay. So we're gonna play a game. In the chat, I would like you to spot the plantain. I have 4 pictures here. And thank you so much, Clover. Yes, Clover is an amazing medicine. Pop in the chat the number of the photo that is plantain or plantain. And if you want a bonus round, go ahead and name the other plants that you can see here. Yes, everybody, plantain is number 3. So I'm going to change my virtual background just so we can give it a lot of love. This is plantain, as you all know. And what we have there, does everybody else have? I'm waiting to see if anyone else. Yes, burdock number 2. There you go. So these pictures were taken last week. I just went down to the schoolyard near my house. And so if you go out for a walk, you know, for your break today, you can take a look and find these plants as they are. Creeping bellflower is number 1. And unfortunately happens to be a little bit of my nemesis in my vegetable garden because they spread by roots or rhizomes and they're very, very vigorous. Number 2 is burdock. Nice. Number 3 is plantain. And number 4, anybody? I'm missing, yes, thank you. Thank you, Estafa. Yep, garlic mustard, you got it. So you are all, we're among friends here. So how have you, oops, this is something else I do with the kids. We play plantain hide and go seek or plants hide and go seek. And so, you know, plantain is hiding here. And I just want you to just do a mini challenge with yourself. Can you find the leaves of plantain hiding in and amongst its plant friends? And if you want to name some of the other plants you see there, I welcome you to add them in the chat just for fun. Yes, thank you. You know, I can try to clear the annotations. You can even circle in there and I'm pretty sure I can clear them. So go ahead and if you want, nice, I love the hearts. Thank you so much. Love it. Thank you, everybody. So there they go. Somebody has spotted the plantain leaves. There's a few more in there, but yes, nice stuff. Okay. So I can clear drawings. Nice. Okay. So here we go. So what do you know about this plant? And where do you see it growing? I'm going to leave some of these hanging questions. How have you used it as medicine? And we'll have a chance to talk towards the end. These are questions I'd love to just be able to hear from you all later on. So plantago. Plantago is the family of plants that we're talking about today, plantain. Plantago rugelii is the native species here to Turtle Island, and Plantago major was brought by English settlers as a healing plant, and it's used in cough syrups all around Europe. And so many of you may have read Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass. Thumbs up if you have. Let me get it here. And it's written by Robin Wall Kimmerer, a Potawatomi ethnobotanist and writer. And she writes about Plantago major as an immigrant plant teacher. She writes that it offers a way of being that does not take over others' homes and grow without limits, but that its strategy is to be useful and fit into small places and coexist with other plants and to heal wounds. I know I'm among friends here, so I know many of you have read these words before. And I'm just going to remind us that she writes that Plantago major is not indigenous, but naturalized. And to become naturalized is to live as if your children's future matters, to take care of the land as if our lives and the lives of all our relatives depend on it. So this serves as a powerful metaphor for settler and indigenous relations. And I would argue for playground friendships as well. And this is where my approach to integrated learning comes in. I would argue that plantain teaches us how we can be together, but not trample over each other. How can we play with games with each other and join another's game without taking it over? And how can we be helpful and caring when we see someone else hurt in the playground? So like I said, the plantago species on Turtle Island share many of the same nutritional and medicinal properties. And it's well known as an anti-inflammatory. And as somebody mentioned in the chat in Buckley's, Linda Black Elk from the Catawba Nation, who's also an ethnobotanist and educator, writes that there's no other plant that is as effective in treating a dry cough as plantain. And the seeds of all plantain species are actually used to make, things like Metamucil, high fiber foods, and other high fiber drinks. So it's got internal properties as well as external healing properties. I'd like to introduce you all to Ruthie, who's a student at the school, and she is going to tell us how plantain is used as playground medicine. Here we go. I hope you can hear it. Let me know if you.
You have an option to share sound.
Okay, so I am sorry. I thought that I had done that, so I'm going to stop my screen share for a moment. And
We did hear it for a moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, when you screen share at the bottom, you do the optimize for sound. But we were hearing it just before you. Mhm.
Great. Okay. So let me just bring it back. And she does speak a little quietly, so here we go.
Scabby thing?
It worked for a moment and then it stopped in the same spot as last time. So it was quiet and then we heard her and then we didn't. So I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, I'm going to try one more time. All right, and then, because I know this is going to work and I'm really appreciative of everyone for hanging with me while I help make this happen. So just gonna.
You can rip it off and sometimes it gets juicy. And then you see here I have like the scabby thing, and sometimes like I take another leaf or like another leaf of plantain. Let's see, like here, and I just put it over, and then I put my pants down just to have it keep in there. You can rip it off.
Okay, we can't have too much of a good thing here. If I can. So in anticipation, thank you, in anticipation of the audio being funny, because I'm doing two screens here, I did transcribe Ruthie's words. And this is from year after year of us doing this work. And so she, talks about how with her friends, how you can heal your scabby bits with plantain. Okay, so I love hearing how kids kind of internalize and take in what we learn year after year, and just able then to, like, she teaches way better than I do with other kids, and so it's just so great. She also goes on to talk about how plantain can be used to draw out the stinger of a bee and can also take out a splinter. And so I just love that she also uses plantain as a Band-Aid that she puts on top of the ripped up juicy bits that she says. So there you go. Okay. All right. So Ruthie gave us an introduction on ways that we can use plantain for boo-boos. And so here they are. And I know that we're, among friends here, so many of you know about these different ways. And when we make plantain salve, we're specifically using the salve or salve, I've also heard that pronunciation, for dry skin and eczema, for stings and scratches and cuts. And some people also use it for extremely dry skin like psoriasis. Okay, so what are our steps? So how do we make plantain salve? Our first step is to give thanks. And again, centering Indigenous knowledge. Giving thanks can be done by non-Indigenous people in non-ceremonial ways. So in many Indigenous nations, people offer tobacco, a medicine, and a gift in return for the plant that may be harvested. So again, the spirit of reciprocity, that is that you give something before you take something. And I just want to say here that identifying plants is also a way, in terms of thinking in Indigenous ways of doing and thinking, is a way of also identifying friends and identifying in Indigenous ways of thinking your relatives. And so when kids recognize plants and their gifts, we nurture our relations with plants as equals. And so somebody mentioned in the chat earlier that there's nothing more fun than seeing a hill of dandelion flowers in spring, or seeing them in seed and just running up and wanting to grab them all and blow all the seed or collect all the flowers. And that's when there's a powerful teaching moment there. I find as an educator to say, hold up, that eyes, when the kids' eyes light up and when they have instant recognition, we also want to use that as an opportunity to not pick all that they can see, or not grab everything like in a store, just take everything that you can get, because that is a consumerist or kind of colonizing way of thinking. But we want kids to have fun, be playful, see their plants as friends and play with them, but not take them all. And so that is speaking to the idea of the honorable harvest or responsible harvest, to not take all the plants, but to see how many plants there are and take what you need. So with the students at the school, we give thanks. We have offered tobacco. We've also come up with little funny songs, and we may have a quiet moment together. We may do some of that visualizing and that kind of sensory activity that we started today with, to have a connection with the plants before we collect them. So moving on, then we collect plantain. So they have to identify the plantain first, which is why we have lots of games to figure that out, so that we don't by accident collect other things, although that does happen, and that's generally then another teaching moment. So then we collect the leaves and we rinse them and pat them dry, and then we let them dry out for at least a day or two, because if the leaves are moist, there's a chance for mold to grow when we're steeping them in oil. So I'm just going to pop me back into the kitchen. So I'm going to take this off here because I'm going to collect some things. Okay. One more moment. And one last thing. Okay, so I'm back with you now. So this is the salve, just so people know. This is what I'm talking about when I say the kids make plantain salve. It's in a little container. It's kind of like a soft cream with a bit of oil and wax. And this is what I mean when we say we steep, like we're steeping tea. the leaves of the plantain in the oil. And this oil can be sunflower oil, olive oil. It can also be an oil that's steeped with another plant. So often in our playground, we also grow calendula, which is another helpful skin plant, helpful for dry skin. And so we'll steep them in oil like this and leave them in a windowsill for about a month at least. And I haven't had any experience with mold growing in there, but that's also because I'm drying the plantain leaves for a good long time. And then we strain the leaves like so into a jar. So we extract the oil, and the oil then is something that, this is the base of the salve. And so what I do, oh, I realize I need to pick up one more thing from over here. What I do, many people will use a double boiler. I actually don't have a double boiler. I am not here at home anyhow. So what I do is I put what is 1 cup of oil to a 1/4 cup of beeswax. And here's the beeswax. And I have a funny story about this. Once I, had to leave my school kitchen, and I just had the beeswax sitting on a plate, and one of my coworkers came along, and she thought that someone had left out dried mango for everyone to eat. And so she picked it up and went for a big chew and was super surprised. So that is a good teaching for us to make sure we know what we're putting into our mouths well before we, and also to label things. So anyhow, just funny little stories. So we put the 1/4 cup of beeswax into the oil, and then I just set the oil into about 1 inch of water in my pot. And I put that pot onto the stove and let it boil until the wax and the oil are combined. And it makes a nice big rumbling sound, but in my experience, that's been a super easy way to make a salve because I don't necessarily want to ruin a pot with oil and wax. And so then I will just have the oil, and when the jar is hot, I have, of course, my oven mitts. But I'm showing this to you just as a quick demo. Pour the oil into my containers, and then there they are. So I let the containers of oil set, and I'm going to share with you in the chat in a moment a link to this process. It's very straightforward, very simple, and something that I can do with the kids. So I'm often, with a hot plate or in the kitchen. This year I was in a hot plate with a hot plate because we couldn't go in the kitchen. And sometimes we add some sweet scent. So this does have lavender in it, and that's lavender essential oil. And there they go. Those are the images from the school. I did not boil them in the kitchen this year. I think I just took pictures to be able to show you guys. So this is an example of what we make for the school. Last year and the year before, the kids called it magical healing cream. This year we had a group of kids who felt like those number of letters was too many letters to write on the sticker, so they just wanted to call it boo boo cream. It was cute and convenient, so we made them into little kits in these mason jars with a lip balm. So this can also be used as a lip balm. It's a wonderful kind of softer texture, but similar kind of usefulness. And we had shoulder buddies to kind of, it's all about marketing, right? And the kids were like, these are just not as interesting as if we added some bit of toy with it. So we added shoulder buddies, which are just pom-poms with glued on eyes and some yarn on top and 2 magnets. And then the shoulder buddies sit on your shoulder. So again, the idea of friendships, that these are our friends, the plants are our friends, and, cultivating that idea. And then you see a picture here in the bottom right-hand corner where we had a outdoor fundraiser market. So families came up one at a time to the table to buy our wares. And we sell out of Boo Boo Cream every year because kids know all about it and they get so excited to share with their families because they've made it themselves. Okay. So I have just a last few things to say, and then I just want to invite people to jump on into a conversation in a moment. So I'm just giving you a heads up that I've mentioned a few practices that help us to connect with the gifts and teachings of plantain, to know it like a good friend and play games to identify them well, to give thanks and express gratitude, and to know that there's so many ways that we can give thanks. When we talk about centering Indigenous knowledge, we can be saying thanks in non-ceremonial ways. So we can talk about Indigenous practices, and we can also be practicing without appropriation. That is, without using ceremonial ways as the only way to be able to practice gratitude. I spoke about harvesting responsibly and the concept of the honorable harvest. So when we see all the plantain in the yard, or when we see all the plants that we're familiar with, we don't grab and run, right? We take a look, we assess, we figure out how much we will actually use. I just, for your information, I usually collect a tray full. This is a tray full here of plantain leaves. And I usually collect enough to fill a jar. So the kids know that, you know, everyone can collect a handful, and that's enough. And then it's so interesting too, because kids year after year can see the difference between the leaves, the plants that grow year to year. This year, for example, the leaves were very, very small, and some kids said, well, maybe it's because we haven't been trampling the yard, because, you know, we're on lockdown, and so the plantain didn't grow like as fast or big or fat and juicy, because that's the environment that they like grow in. So again, integrating the ideas that we are, our connection to the land and our relationship to the plants are close, especially in the playground. And that as a medicine, you know, what I think is so fabulous about plantain is that what heals playground scratches and bruises is right underfoot. It's right there, right in the schoolyard. And so the idea that if we see plants as relations and as what, you know, what we need is right there, it's a powerful, powerful metaphor. So I've also talked about how plantain can be used to describe our playground relationships. And so as a teacher in the playground, plantain reminds us to be generous, reminds us to be aware of what's going around us, who's with us, who's around us, to be aware of the humility of medicines, and that when we're seen and heard as helpers and allies, as compared with being seen as a weed, we can be powerful. And so I think that's a really helpful teaching, and that's something that I like to convey with the students that I work with. And I will end there. I want to share ideas with everyone here, and I want to ask, when have you used plants with students? And what other ways have you centered Indigenous knowledge in the playground? So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.
People to either enter into the chat. Oh yeah, tapping for syrup. That is a perfect way. Yeah. In downtown Toronto, we have 3 maple trees in our schoolyard, and we tap 2 of them every other year. So yeah, birch syrup is another one. Thank you so much. Yes, and cedar, collecting cedar for tea, which is very powerful. Oh yeah, and kids love, yes, and sumac. Comfrey is another one. The kids call it Velcro leaf. Like it's, one year some kids like attached comfrey to their whole bodies to play, and then we, did use it to make a salve. I love all of the comments in the chat. I'm so happy that you're all sharing here. I need to take notes. Yes. There were some years, yes. Miner's lettuce, perfect. And peppermint for sure. One year we grew chocolate peppermint in the yard, and chives, and the kids just all came in smelling like onions, and like they just smelled spicy. It was mixed with their own, growing hormones. It was awesome. Bergamot is a wonderful tea. Yeah. Oh yeah, and yeah, when you stumble upon something like something so pungent like sage, it's so fun because it just tells you that the kids' senses are super strong, and when they stumble upon something, it can be so amazing. Oh yeah, nice. Spruce gum, love it. So I have a couple of resources, and if people want to share resources, yes, sensory, yeah, any sensory gardening that can be done in the windowsill, in the school ground is great. Yeah, horsetail's the best, and I also use horsetail as paintbrushes, which is super fun. So the image that I have up here right now is from this wonderful resource by Christy Belcourt for the Gabrielle Dumont Institute. And it includes a really great poster and book. And it's called Medicines to Help Us Traditional Métis Plant Use. So I just want to welcome everyone to, in addition to sharing about how you've used plant medicine, what resources are out there to help to help those of us to keep this kind of work going. Or yeah. So you may have read in the intro description that I was planning to make elderberry syrup. And if you were with me in the school ground, we would have had 2 pots going, and I would have had my elderberry syrup going at the same time as the plantain salve. But that was an adjustment that I made for this virtual space. Yeah. There are some great resources on the ETFO First Nations, Métis, and Inuit website. There's a land-based learning resource that's very dense, but it also is just a really wonderful way to see different Indigenous perspectives on land-based learning. So it's Inuit, Métis, and 2 First Nations that are represented in that resource. I have also used different herbalists resources with kids. And so this one here is Rosemary Gladstar's Medicinal Herbs. This is a non-Indigenous herbalist who I've been encouraged to try making vitamin C tablets and all kinds of fun things that have worked and haven't worked as well. So yeah, what is her name? So this one I did not write in my resource list, but it's Rosemary Gladstar's Medicinal Herbs, and it's a really useful resource for both beginners and experienced people who use plant medicine, because it has a lot of recipes in it and just great identifying photos. So sage, for that person who mentioned sage earlier. And I will also put into the chat the process that we use to make the plantain salve. So you're welcome to use that resource. Yeah, I was hopeful that we could just continue having an open chat. Remy, I'm looking to you for direction.
Yes, I was just going to say, first of all, thank you so
in the
much.
chat. That would be great.
Okay, are you hearing me right now?
I'm also always up for a longer break, so if we want to end now, that's totally fine. I'm so happy that you are all able to make it to this. I know that it's a lot of Zooming that we're doing. I can't hear you. That's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Can people hear me right now? It's not seem.
Remy, I can hear you. I just don't think Emily can hear us. Emily,
Okay.
can you hear us now?
Now I can hear you. Yes, but my problem is that I just don't want it to echo. So
Okay.
maybe what I'll do is I will put on my, so I've just put on my transcript so I can hear you through the transcript, and that will help reduce the
Okay.
reduce the echo.
You can hear me now, Emily.
And thank you for your patience, everyone. Yes.
Oh, hey, that's totally understandable. In this platform, there's always something that goes on, and you've done an extraordinary job, actually, of adapting with poise to all the challenges. Yeah, so we're a fairly small group. I think if people would like to just unmute themselves and ask a few questions, we do have a few minutes. We do have to kind of move on to the next session in about 7 minutes. But and the chat can continue as well. Just one question, Emily, were you planning to put your slides up in the chat for people to download?
Oh, sure. Okay, I'll do that while people are typing in the chat. Just give me one moment.
If anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself and put yourself on video too, if you like. Okay.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah. It's been a wonderful presentation, Emily. I found that really interesting. I'm way up the northwest of Canada here. We do have a few native plantains, but they're kind of few and far between. But I love the process. I always kind of wondered how you made those salves and ointments. So that's a very simple process.
The first question that people often ask is, does it really work? And it's amazing because kids are the best for saying, oh yeah, absolutely. So it's always important to get other kids on board and to have it in the school ground first aid kit so that, so that they have firsthand experience with the medicines. Great.
Well, okay. If there aren't any particular questions or comments, we certainly encourage you to unmute yourself and say a big thank you to Emily for her presentation.
We did just have one last question from Catherine saying, any advice for teacher candidates on how to start?
I would say practice on your own. So it's always great to be learning alongside with kids, and it's always good to practice on your own a little first. And so in my yard, I feel like I'm practicing with my kids. I have a 15-year-old and 10-year-old, and they're like, oh yeah, because, I've practiced with them. So I would say practice on your own. And there's just so many resources out there online as well on how to work with plant medicine and how to make, simple things like plantain salve. So try it out, and then you will figure out. I mean, for example, nowhere did I read that, you can just drop the mason jar right into the boiling water and it'll do its business, because I couldn't get a double boiler and I didn't want to do all the dishes, frankly. So, that's the kind of trial and error that we do a little bit, on our own before we bring this to students. And I will say that, as much as even if it's not down to the very hands-on producing the salve for the school, fundraiser, even if it's just identifying the plants and playing those games and getting familiar with how kids can find different plants and, having some field guides in the yard with you, getting your computer linked up with the Ethernet cable so you can identify plants right there in the yard. Playing those hide and seek games is the best way, I think, to just get down and dirty with kids in the schoolyard and become familiar with the plants in your schoolyards. Okay. Well,
Yeah, something I was told was also don't feel like you have to learn, all the sort of plants in your schoolyard all at once. Like a good tip was sort of take one or two and watch them through the season to see,
Yes.
okay, how do they first come up? How do they flower? How do they die? So that you form this intimate relationship and don't feel like you have to figure it all out all at once. Was good advice that
yeah.
made me
Dandelion's an
feel-
easy one to start with. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Enjoy the rest of
Thank
the
you to
conference.
Haley and Remy. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Enjoy the
Yeah.
rest of the conference, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.